getting a research project published in a high impact journal give benefits to both the researcher and the institution, the university. Okay, and it is through the publication that we can share our knowledge to others, our research to others. And by this will make the researchers with similar interest to aware of new knowledge in the field and helps to advance the knowledge and its application. And as we know, it is difficult actually to get published in high quality journal, especially Q1, Q2 journals. Okay, so this topic today is very important to us, and hopefully after this, many of our postgraduate students will publish papers. Okay, and we are honored here today to have Dr. Iona Gracium for the talk today. Okay, let me brief a bit about Dr. Iona. Okay, Dr. Iona holds a bachelor's degrees in chemical engineering from University of Florida and PhD from the University of Iowa. Okay, and she completed a postdoc at University of Basel, focusing in the development of polymer-based system for biomedical applications. And now Dr. Iona is in the MDPI, Board of Scientific Officers, with great experience in the field of publications. So today, we are going to listen to her talk on preparing for submission behind the scenes of editorial processing. So please welcome Dr. Iona.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, and I'm happy to see so many people here today, and hopefully I can share a little bit of insight on the editorial process and what happens, so that way it's helpful for you during submission of your manuscripts and it will push them forward towards acceptance. So hopefully I can share my screen. Okay. Perfect. Good. So can everyone see this?
Yes, we can see that.
Yes. Perfect. Great. So here we go. Let me grab the laser pointer. Great. So in general, there are 4 phases to submitting a manuscript all the way to having it published. And this includes all of the preparatory work that you must do for submission, the actual submission phase, the editorial process phase, which includes the peer review, and post-publication, and what you can do after your article is selected for publication to get the most out of it and have the most expanded readership, which is quite important. So I'm going to cover each one of these phases in detail and kind of giving hints and tips at each stage on what is important. So for preparing for submission, and so here you first have to start with a well-prepared manuscript that includes all relevant data and it's well written. You will also need to select a journal, have some author information ready, recommend reviewers, and also cover letter. And so together, these are kind of the main components you need prior to submission. And I will go through each one now. So when we talk about a well-prepared manuscript, it's not only the introduction, the materials and methods. These are areas that I think researchers really focus on, and they are extremely important, but there's also other parts to it, such as the front matter. And so this includes kind of having a catchy title, something that will entice the reviewers, the editors, the readers to actually click and read the article. You also need to have correct names and affiliations, an abstract that is, it's really important, even the abstract. It's the first thing the reviewers will read, and they will decide, is this relevant? Should I continue reading the article? So it is what we recommend the last thing you write after your article, and to really highlight the importance, the findings, anything that you think will catch the reader's interest. And then finally, the keywords. Now here it's also, you shouldn't rush the keywords. They should reflect very well your article and what is the content of the research. And you also must know that later, if the article is accepted, databases and search engines will use these keywords to bring your article as a hit for readers. And so the best keywords that reflect will lead to your article being more discoverable and being read more. Next, we have the back matter. And so this is towards the end of the article. You must have, the funding information, ethical approvals, any conflict of interest, author contributions, and data availability statements. And so the back matter is something that reviewers and also editors will really look at. And so it's important to have very accurate statements here. Next, we have supplemental material. And so here we're looking at, is it relevant for this material to be in the main text, or should it be presented in supplementary material? Figures and tables. These are crucial to have good quality and resolution, clear and uniform. So you want to look at the graphs all together. Are they uniform? Are the scales uniform? This helps the reviewers as well as readers and academic editors really read through the material, understand the data, and make decisions a lot faster. Next, having informative legends. And so it's also important because reviewers and also readers, they tend to first look at your front matter, especially the abstract, and then they will immediately scroll through the article, looking at the figures and reading the legends to kind of get a gist of what the article is about. And so these two combined will, especially for readers, they will make a decision on, am I going to read the full length of the article? And so this is why figures and legends, as well as the abstract, are quite crucial. And finally, references. Reviewers, academic editors, they will check the references to make sure that they are relevant, that they are current, and that they do not include too many self-citations. Especially for the self-citations, are those articles relevant and current enough for the article and the material being presented today, or are they maybe unnecessary? So you also want to kind of self-check your self-citations before moving forward to make sure that all of this material is good and presented in the best possible fashion. So once you have prepared a manuscript, next what's important is to check where you want to submit. And so here I'm looking at the journal Diagnostics from MDPI, but most of the journals have kind of a similar layout even from different publishers. And what you want to look at is the journal menu. And this includes the aims and scope, always, sometimes within the menu. And so the aims and scopes kind of gives you a general broad overview of what is the journal focused on, and especially what are some of the main topics of interest. And so you want to first check that your article actually fits within some of the keywords here and the general aim. Now, if you want to go more into detail, you can look at sections and collections. And so here we have the broad overview of the journal. And then for sections, you have more specialized areas. And so perhaps you want to look at medical imaging and theranostic systems, and this is what your article is about. Then you can go to an even more detailed area by looking at current special issues that are opened, which are narrowing down the field more, and also topical collections. And so it's important to see, where does your article fit? And it is, I guess in my personal opinion, better to submit your article to a section than in a general area, because then your article is placed together with other articles of interest. And so you have a higher chance of readers maybe scrolling through and saying, oh, look, this is also related to the other article, so maybe I will read it also. So it's all about placing your article in the best area to be discovered. Next, going back to the journal menu, there are a couple of other important areas to look at. One is the editorial board of a journal. And so here looking at who are the editors, editor-in-chief, section editor-in-chief. In a way, it can help you find maybe reviewers you want to suggest for your article, and also to see, oh, I know these people, their research is similar to my research, and I always read their articles, so then I can know that my article is suitable for their section or is suitable for this journal. So it's just another way to kind of fine-tune your journal selection. Next, what you can check, especially for open access, there are article processing charges, and they should be declared on the website, and we have them for every single journal, and most journal open access publishers in the gold model will have some of these fees. So it's good to look, check, and know beforehand. Also, it helps that nothing pops up and surprises you later on. And finally, the instruction for authors. And so I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this area. Now, I will say that there's a lot of information on this page. You have manuscript submission overview, preparation, etc. It is worthwhile reading this section. I know it can be tedious, but there's a lot of great information. And sometimes journals, and this happens across many publishers, they will say, what type of research they do not accept or they do accept, what are the standards that they're looking for. Perhaps if you have like for systematic reviews, they want them to be registered, they should follow PRISMA guidelines, there are links to what is expected, and so it is worth reading. Also, a lot of publishers will provide a template, so like a Word document, where you can insert your manuscript and then present it to reviewers in the best possible way. And so again, there's a lot of really good information here, and I do recommend that you take the time and read these instructions and make sure that you are adhering to all of the requirements. So now we're getting close to the submission stage. And so you want to prepare author information. So make sure everyone has a current affiliation and you have the correct emails for every single author. And you want to ensure that all authors agree with the final version, author contributions, and approve the submission to this particular journal, section, special issue, etc. And so once you have this approval, you can look at the cover letter preparation. And so for most publishers, and including MDPI, what is important is that the cover letter is concise. So you don't want to have multiple pages. It highlights the significance of the current work. So this is important. And here you want to highlight the novelty aspect. And you also want to highlight the relevance to the journal scope. So why are you selecting specifically this scope, this journal, and why will your article be relevant for the readership of the journal? And so a well-prepared cover letter can again help a lot. You also want to acknowledge any special cases, for example, if this is a resubmission or anything else. And then for MDPI, for example, all cover letters are required to include the following statements. So we confirm that neither the manuscript nor any parts of its content are currently under consideration or published in another journal, and also that all authors have approved the manuscript and agree with its submission to, and then you can insert the journal name. So again, it's important to, take care of all of the technical aspects and ensure that the cover letter is well prepared, as this is one of the first things that the editors of the journal will open and read. And the final thing is recommending potential reviewers. And so most submission systems will have a section where you can recommend reviewers. And it is important to think about them beforehand and be prepared with some names in hand, and to kind of sway the academic editors as well as editorial offices to maybe, select these reviewers. You have to make sure that you're recommending scholars that have appropriate expertise to review the manuscript and a strong publication record, that they're not co-authors or close collaborators. And so, that you have published articles with these recommended reviewers within the last 5-8 years or so. We also look that they're from different institutions, and we also would like, since it's an international journal and research is international, it is recommended that they're also from different countries and spread across the globe. So that way, the review is not as biased. And you will be asked, as I mentioned, to provide their email and affiliation information. So it's good to take some time, think about a couple of reviewers. I think we recommend 3 to be inputted. You can, of course, recommend more, but it's good to prepare this information beforehand so you're not rushing during the submission system. And so my final tips here would be to read, reread, and read again all of the material. And it is important to make sure that there's no, errors that could be avoided, figures that are maybe duplicated because somebody copy pasted at the last moment, a panel. So it's good to check everything again, make sure you're upholding ethical standards, and be organized. So having folder for final submission with the manuscript, with folders for each figure, with the raw data, and all of the materials you're going to upload, makes sure that you have everything ready on hand for if reviewers ask for something or during the submission system. So being organized is quite crucial in this whole process. So now we're finally at the submission stage. One thing is to always start by having the login information and making sure you have the proper credentials. So your username, your password. I know scholars always submit to different publishers, and then these, the emails and passwords can get confusing. So it's good to check that you have everything you need. And then your manuscript information, author information, reviewers, manuscripts, and you'll confirm. So now I will take you quickly through each of these steps, kind of showing you in MDPI's submission system, what should you expect. And again, it's fairly standard and there's different variations across publishers. And so in the step 1, you will input the journal you would like to submit to. And again, here you want to make sure you're not making any mistakes. So that way your article doesn't accidentally end up in a completely different journal and then you get a rejection immediately because it's out of scope. So it's important to take your time with each step. And you will be asked to input the title and then the abstract and your keywords as the initial step. Next, it's the tedious step, where you have to input the name and institutional email of every single author. And it takes a lot of time, but again, if you prepare and have all of this information ready and on hand, it will make the submission system run a lot faster for you, and you'll get through inputting all of this information. And it's important that it is correct and it matches what is in the article. If not, it will delay the whole process and you'll end up going back and forth with the editorial office, asking you questions and having to make readjustments. So it's good to pay attention to this. And also including ORCID IDs is important, so that way, once published, we can add the ORCID link to your name and it links the article to your account. Next, we have step 3, which here it's where you can suggest and exclude reviewers, which we have mentioned before. You can also suggest articles that are similar to yours. And we also, I would like to highlight here, there is an open peer review option. In here, open peer review means if your article is accepted, we will publish the reviewer reports as well as your answers to the reviewers alongside the final article. And we do this for transparency of the peer review process, and so everyone can read and see the different versions and edits that have been done. Next, you will be asked to upload the manuscript. And so all of the different documents, the cover letter, and graphical abstract you might have. And you'll also be asked to answer.
Start from the homepage and go to the layout. Choose the link.
Sorry?
Slide.
Let me exit maybe the presentation mode. See in the chat. Can we please, oh. Can you still see the slides?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. I thought there was something, I heard some voices. Okay, so I will continue with this. You'll be asked to answer some questions about the conflict of interest, etc., and then you're ready to confirm and send.
Dr. Ayuna, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, clear.
Perfect.
All right.
And so the second part is the production part. And so I will first go over the peer review and then shortly the production, where for authors, the proofreading part is the important one.
Dr. Ayuna, actually we missed the initial part of the slide.
Okay.
Okay.
So once you submit your manuscript, it goes to a pre-check, and this is done both by MDPI academic editors in combination with our external editors. We have then the peer review process where it goes out to reviewers, and here you will have multiple rounds of revision, and together with academic editor decisions at different stages, and the academic editor will also provide a final decision, which will be reject or accept. And so after a manuscript is accepted, it goes to production, where here we get the manuscript ready for it to be posted online, as well as in a different format to be shared with The indexing databases, so like in Web of Science and Scopus and PubPeer and PubMed. And the important part here is the proofreading, which I will go over. And so first I will start with this part. And so during pre-check, as I mentioned, staff from the journal, as well as academic editors, will have a look at your manuscript. And the journal editors will do a technical check. And so they're looking at the ethical statements, documents you provide. We do a plagiarism check using Authenticate. We look at the references and the structure. The academic editor is responsible for looking at more of the scope, scientific correctness, language, and they will also check ethical statements and references. And so this is only a brief check of the article to make sure that it fits the journal, that it is scientifically correct, not going too much into detail, and especially that it fulfills all ethical requirements. And so after pre-check, sometimes we ask authors for revisions, or it will go directly to peer review, or in some cases, the manuscript might be rejected. And typically here, it's related most of the time, I would say, regarding the scope. But now let's focus on the actual peer review. And so once it goes to peer review, the first thing is an assistant editor that was assigned to your manuscript will start inviting reviewers. And so we're looking at reviewers from three main places. One is recommendations from the academic editor. So the person that checked your manuscript during pre-check will recommend reviewers for the article. So we will select from there. We have our own MDPI pool of reviewers. Also, we have reviewer boards, volunteer reviewers. So those are the people we will invite. And we will also look at the author recommendations I mentioned before. And if there are suitable candidates that meet the requirements, we may invite them. In general, the reviewers we look for, they must hold a PhD. They have to be an active researcher and with a good publication record within the field of the paper. We also look for their official and recognized affiliation to make sure that we are inviting is indeed the correct person. We have a way to automatically check conflicts of interest, as well as we expect reviewers and authors to declare if they have any conflict of interest. And we expect all of the reviewers to provide good quality review reports, and we expect them to remain responsive throughout the peer review process, answering when you resubmit the manuscript, they're rechecking, they're answering our questions, as well as questions you may have. And we also expect them that they maintain standards of professionalism and ethics. And so we do want the review reports to be written in a non-biased and very non-confrontational tone. And we also always collect a minimum of 2 reviewer reports per submission. However, it is common that you might see 3 or 4 reviewer reports. So what do reviewers actually look at? So one tip is that you can always look at a journal's information for reviewers page, because here journals give information to reviewers and kind of outline important things they should look at. So as authors, it's important for you to also look at that same information so you can anticipate what a reviewer is going to check. And so they look, of course, for clarity, relevance, structure. They look at the references, as I mentioned, research soundness. They look at the experimental design, making sure that there is enough details so it is reproducible. They will check the figures, tables, images to make sure that they're understandable, consistent, and also significant. And especially they check the consistency between the evidence shown via the data the arguments presented, and then the conclusions drawn. And so you want to make sure that everything is in agreement and that you haven't overstated the conclusions, and maybe there are not enough arguments or data to support those conclusions. They also check, as I mentioned, the ethics statements, data availability statements, and we specifically ask them to rate novelty, scope, significance, quality, these areas. Now, what you will receive as the review report, it typically should start off with a brief summary where they kind of summarize what they understood to be the aim of your paper, the main contribution, and its strengths. And then they will describe some general concept comments. So they'll highlight general areas of weaknesses, testability of the hypothesis, any methodological inaccuracies, or if there's specific experiments that they feel are missing. So very, very broad. For reviews, it's a little bit different, but kind of along the same lines. And then finally, they should include a section with specific comments they might have. And this is referring to line numbers in the text. If they notice that something's wrong in a figure or in a table, or if maybe there's a sentence that is a little bit unclear, they will provide some point-by-point, short little comments, things that can be fixed easily. And so this is kind of the report that you will receive. Reviewers will also make a recommendation on whether the manuscript can be accepted in present form, but this is extremely rare. If it requires minor revisions, major revisions, or if they believe the article has serious flaws, in which case it would take longer and maybe you would have to resubmit the manuscript later after completing additional experiments. But based on the reviewer recommendations, a first decision is made whether the article should undergo minor revisions or major. And we provide quite a short time frame, but you can always ask for an extension. And it is important that you do the revisions as best as possible. And so if you do need the extra time, the editorial office is more than happy to provide it. And it's important that, the revisions are done correctly. Sometimes an academic editor might ask for an additional reviewer. And these are sometimes maybe the cases where you'll see additional reviewers added. Or the academic editor might decide at this stage to reject and encourage resubmission based on the reviewer recommendations. So once you receive the article back with the reviewer reports, it's important to start providing a point-by-point response to every single question or comment that the reviewers had. You should always highlight the changes or turn on track changes in the manuscript. And this is because when you resubmit to the journal, this is the first thing the journal will check if there were changes made. And also in the point-by-point response, you can say specifically the line where the change was made and then also highlight it. And so this makes the whole process go smoother because the reviewers and the academic editor can immediately say, yes, okay, I see what they changed, where they changed it, now it is correct, and they have addressed my concerns. And so making everything as clear as possible from the author's side will help the reviewers and the academic editors make a decision faster. Also, if there are questions from the reviewers that perhaps you cannot respond to, or you believe that the text was already included somehow, or, there's some issues, you can provide rebuttals for the specific points. And so you just have to be clear and justify why the additional data is not needed or anything of that matter. So this is also an option. Also, if there are any authorship changes at this point, you must inform the editorial office. So after revision, we will send the article back to the reviewers and they will review it again. Now they can recommend again major minor revisions, in which case you'll have to revise the manuscript again. And then it will, once the cycle is finished, it will go to a final decision. And one tip here is that you should keep in touch with the editorial office at all stages. And so if you require more time or if you're unsure about something, it's good to reach out to the editorial office. We can always ask the academic editor for their opinion. And so open communication in this process is really important and can help you. Now, when it goes to the final decision, the academic editor makes an independent decision. And so what they're basing their decision on is all of the review reports and the reviewer recommendations at all of the different stages. They're looking again at the novelty, the significance of content, the quality of the presentation, kind of recapitulating everything, what the reviewer said, and then they make a final decision on your manuscript. And so here the options are to accept. Sometimes they will ask for a slight minor revision, but these will never be anything major related to experiments, or maybe they will want to adjust a couple of sentences here and there. They might decide to reject the manuscript or reject and encourage resubmission. And these are in cases where they believe that the reviewer reports were not answered fully. And so if there are still some questions under debate, they might select reject and encourage resubmission. So that's why it's important to make sure that you are answering the reviewers or providing a rebuttal, so that way the academic editor has all of the material needed to make a final decision. So at this stage, hopefully your manuscript was accepted and it goes for proofreading. And you will receive the manuscript after copy editing, English editing, everything gets checked. You'll receive a final version. And here it's important to not, again, rush this stage and make sure you are checking everything again. And so I'll go a little bit over the points. Because after this step, it goes to final copy editing, then it gets transformed so it can be uploaded online and published. And if there's any mistake here, this process goes quite quickly, and then it gets picked up by all of the different databases. And while we can change, for example, a mistake in someone's name or a spelling, like major spelling error, other databases will not update their information until later on. And so it goes into this kind of loop of waiting around, and some of the mistakes cannot be corrected soon enough. And so during proofing, again, you should check the front matter, the back matter, make sure it's complete and everything is accurate. You should again check all of the figures, or if you're submitting a review and it contains maybe figures from other published articles, ensure that all of the permissions are there and correct. You will also receive a manuscript that contains different queries from the production editor. And so you want to make sure that you are answering every single comment to make sure that you've addressed them. If not, this will delay the process. And also, again, ensure all authors approve the final version. And so here you have to kind of check and recheck everything multiple times, and then make sure that what you are sending back is what you would like online. Now, I think after this very long process, a lot of authors are tempted to say, great, it's published, job done. What is important is what you do post-publication. And the more you promote your article, the more readers can find it, discover it, read it, and hopefully end up citing your article. So you're really increasing the impact your research can have if you're doing some of these post-publication promotion. And so what we recommend to our authors is use social media. And so you can share your articles on various social networks, especially LinkedIn or Twitter. You can add the link to the webpage of your article. And so it is important to kind of promote it and put it out there so more people see it, they can start a discussion. Also, if you can ask your institution to do a news release, or if you're part of a society, they can post your paper on their social media. If you do any of this type of posting, you can also contact the editorial office or assistant editor and let them know so we can also share it on our social media networks. And so in a way, the more people share your research, the more people have access to it, read it, and possibly cite it. You can also consider including your link and maybe your email signature at the end, so the link to the article. You can also directly share the link with colleagues or peers via email. And make sure you update your personal or institutional website by adding the title of the manuscript, and you can again put the link there. Also, you should register an ORCID account, and then there's multiple platforms out there. Site Profiles is from MDPI, but there's of course ResearchGate, academia.eu, Google Scholar. So making sure that you have updated academic research profiles everywhere will really help promote your work, and you can really build a really good profile online. And then finally, you can always present your publication at conferences in the form of a presentation or a poster. And this is really great to really share your data with everyone out there. So share with your colleagues. And with that, I will thank you all, and I will answer maybe any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ayuna, for the very informative talk. So the talk is very good for postgraduate and also the lecturers, okay, on how
It
to
was a
prepare the
little bit
manuscript.
dense.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
of information to cover, and I
Yeah.
think I went quite quickly through it.
So the important is you need to read, reread, and read again before you submit. Okay. All right.
Yes.
Is there any question from the participants? We have 76 participants. Okay. Any question? The ideal, do you have idea? Do you have any question? See?
Hello, Dr. Ayana.
All right.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I have several questions. So the first one is, in what condition a manuscript can be rejected during editorial screening?
So during the pre-check.
Yeah.
So there's multiple reasons. One, is it within the scope of the journal? Two, the academic editor might decide that it's not novel enough, or it's too similar to previously published research, and it's therefore not bringing much to the readership of the journal. This could happen, and it depends on the academic editor. And then if there's any technical issues, we do allow authors, for example, if it's too similar to previously published articles, we will ask you to rephrase. But depends on how extensive that is. It might lead to a rejection, or if there's a lot of missing, the ethical statements, or if some of that back matter is missing, or reference issues. I think it's small issues that accumulate over time, as you're reading the manuscript, could lead to a rejection. So there's different reasons why. But you can always ask for clarification, or if there's anything you could do to improve.
Okay, and then the second is, what is the total number of co-authors in a publication? Is there any limitation in number?
So in total number of authors, no. However, we do limit shared first authorship or shared corresponding authors. We will allow 2. In some journals, especially our editors-in-chief, do not really like this, especially when it comes to corresponding author, because there should be a main point of contact. But again, they will allow 2. It's just do not submit with 3, 4 more corresponding authors, so shared or shared first authorship.
Okay, and then upon a manuscript is published, can we just simply upload the manuscript as upload the paper in the research guide and the academia, such as, because some of the journals they cannot to upload in this kind of the website. So how about the MDPI?
Yes, so this depends on the copyright associated with the publisher. Now, MDPI is open access, and it uses a CC BY which means that you retain the rights to the article. So you are free to share it on all of the platforms, and as long as you are crediting it, you can reuse anything within the article. So for MDPI journals, yes, all of the articles you can share directly. For other publishers, for example, I know with the green open access model, there is a period where you cannot, and after that it becomes fully open access. So you just need to check.
Okay, any other question?
Okay.
Dekat.
Tak apa. Lepas ni lagi.
And then the last question from me, Doctor, how can a person be a guest editor in the MDPI journal?
Okay, so you can submit a proposal for a special issue via the website. I guess I could share a link, or maybe after the talk I can send more information. Or you can contact the editorial office and propose a special issue. We will require the title, a description, and then what's important is who do you think will contribute to the special issue. So if you have any people in mind that you would invite, we will also ask for you to list that so we can, we will then do what is called a feasibility report to make sure that there are enough publications in the field, and then and that there's no other open special issue at the time with the same title. So most of the time this is an issue because we have quite a few of them open. So we might come back to you and say, yes, but let's wait for this one to close and then we can open yours. So as long as you, either via the website, there is now a special place where you can upload all of this information and apply for a special issue, or directly via emailing the editorial office.
Okay, Doctor, thank you so much.
Okay,
Hi,
next.
Dr. Ayana.
Yes.
Hayati.
I have the 5th question from us. I would like to ask you, is there any, such criteria to get the discount fee for the publication? Because sometimes I thought that some of people got it. Okay, thank you.
So for the waivers, waivers really depend on, I mean, there's multiple factors. Special issues do come with more waivers. And so the guest editor might have remaining waivers and will say, yes, let's assign it to this article. The academic editor might say, yes, the research is great. We want this paper. Let's offer a waiver. And overall, it depends on journal budget. I mean, they have a limited amount of waivers they can give out. And so they also factor this in. And sometimes you might receive not a full waiver, but a specific discount. You can also check if you have an institutional waiver, or if you're part of a society that is affiliated with one of our journals. It gets quite complicated. There's different areas to check, but again, checking with the editorial office, submitting maybe the title, abstract, or your article and saying, we would like to submit this. We would also like a waiver. Can you check if this is possible? And then we can share your article with the academic editor, and then they can say, yeah, sure.
Any more
Okay,
questions?
doctor. Thank you for this very good presentation. I would like to ask regarding the ORCID. So after production, for example, after production for the PDF file, can we add the ORCID later and we're going to be changed in PDF version? And the second question is for the to be a volunteer reviewer to the NDB. For example, if you are not finishing your PhD, but still you got more publication, this will allow you to become a reviewer. Thank you.
So for the reviewer, you are finishing your PhD. It's a little bit difficult here. You must have your PhD finished, and we must be able to somehow verify that you do have the PhD obtained. This is one of the main requirements because you will be reviewing articles from people with PhDs, so you must be, one of their peers. And then we will look at the publication record. So you should have quite a few publications within the past 5 years. We're looking for quite a lot. So it could be that because of this, it will take a while. We are trying to introduce more initiatives for students or young career researchers just finishing their PhD. So that way they can start reviewing with us, gaining experience, but we will not use their review report as a final review report, just because they don't have enough publishing experience. And the issue is not looking only at the science, it's looking at all of the ethical aspects and the approvals and the documentation that goes along with publishing an article and kind of spotting any ethical issues. And that's usually why reviewers must be experienced. And your first question, I'm so sorry, I forgot it. It was about ORCID, right?
ORCID. Yeah, ORCID.
Yes. So I believe at the proving stage, you will get an email and to add it. However, the earlier you do it and you provide the information to the assistant editor, the better it is. Because sometimes towards the end, when everyone is rushing, mistakes can be made. And I've seen, the wrong link used or it's not connected properly. So I would suggest at the proving stage, to try to include it then, or even at the submission stage, the earlier the better, then you can check that it's correct throughout the process. But I think you should, for any kind of questions like this, you can always contact either the assistant that was helping you to add the link or the editorial office, and somebody should respond and help get that sorted.
Okay.
I also see that there are some questions in the chat.
Yeah, in the chat box from Mutas. Mutas is our PhD student.
Right, so the quality and resolution of the figures. I think it's 600 DPI. But again, if you look at the instruction for authors page, it will tell you exactly if you click on the figures and images, it tells you the exact resolution. For MDPI, I don't think we are as picky. But for other publishers, I know they also require specific formats. Like, I don't know if they want only JPEG or PNG, or sometimes they use different, what is it? ESP, I believe it's called. So always check the instruction for authors page and they'll tell you about the quality and specific document. And then the next question is, when the journal decision is reject and encourage resubmission, what does it mean? So it means that the academic editor is not 100% happy with the revisions. And also, the revisions might take quite a long time. So the reviewers will say reject, but listen, if they include this experiment or if they make these changes, the article can be improved. So it just means that it's not flawed research. It can be improved. And so then, yes, we encourage you to resubmit once specific questions are asked. And when this happens, again, you can always ask for additional comments from the academic editor, and if they can guide you, so you can make sure that your resubmission does fulfill all of the criteria. And then we have another question. What is the current trend in terms of research topics that authors can focus on to increase the chance of publication and acceptance? Right. I think, it depends. What you can look at a little bit is, and how within, for example, Web of Science, you can always look at what are the highly cited papers. You can always look at, what's trending there. You can also look, I know in the US, NIH, for example, has specific research topics that they're focusing on each year, and so they will do call for proposals. So people submit research grants on specific topics which are of interest and being funded. So those are also kind of groundbreaking. So you can also check there for research topics, or in Europe, there are the Horizon 2020 funds, or from the funding agencies. They will have specific calls for projects and topics of interest. So those could also be important research topics in the upcoming years. As funding is typically for 3-4 years, it means that these topics are of importance, and there'll be a lot of papers published on that later on. So that could be, but again, haven't been involved in research in the last 2 to 3 years, so I'm not the best person to ask about this. But hopefully I could give some input there.
All right. Okay, is there any more question? Maybe we allow 1 or 2 questions because it's almost 4. Okay. If there's no other question. Okay, Dr. Aina, we are very fortunate here today to have somebody expert like you to give the talk today. So on behalf of everyone, I would like to thank for taking the time to speak to us on this very important topic on preparing the manuscript until the post-publication promotion. And again, thank you so much for sharing the expertise with us. And to all participants, thank you for participating in this webinar. Before that, Dr. Farid, can we have a photo take? Can you take photo? Everybody can on the video.
Yeah. Can everybody turn on your video camera, please?
Yeah, on the video.
Happy to see everyone.
Yeah.
Smile.
Ali, can you? Okay. All right. Okay, Dr. Farid.
Okay, done.
All right. Okay. Thank you again, Dr.
Very
Aina.
much.
Great. Thank you
Hopefully we
so much
can.
for
Yeah.
inviting us and hope it was informative for you guys.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.